I am not a smart man moments have you experienced? Story 1 Step 1 Obtain yogurt. Step 2 Remove lid. Step 3 Throw yogurt in the trash bin. Step 4 Look at your hand, holding the yogurt lid. Step 5 Evaluate all of your life choices. Story 2 Someone told me their birthday was on Friday the 13th this year. After acknowledging how much that would, I found a long list online of every upcoming Friday the 13th for the next several decades to check that it would never happen to me. I made it 50 years down the list before I thought I realized a slight pattern and that my birthday won't ever not be on the 18th. Story 3 Went through a drive-thru, ordered, paid, thanked them, and then bolted before they even had a chance to hand me my food. Didn't realize my abject stupidity until about 10 minutes later when I reached for a fry and got nothing but air. Story 4 Once I wanted to test my voicemail, so I used my house phone to dial my cell, and when my phone rang I actually answered it expecting someone to be on the other line. Story 5 I live in a region that doesn't get snow often, let alone more than a few inches when it finally does. Finally it snows here and it's so exciting, except that I still have to go to work, so when I got to my door I grabbed the handle and yanked trying to pry that thing open. I couldn't believe it. It was frozen shut finally. After almost falling down and busting I called my boss and said my car door is frozen shut. I'm just going to stay home today. The next day I had to leave for work again, and at this point majority of the snow was melted. I unlocked the door, got in and started the engine when it all of a sudden hit me. I never unlocked my door on the previous day. I did not feel like a smart woman. Story 6 Called LAPD because car window was stolen. Officer comes and rolls up the window. I forgot I rolled it down. Whoa, thanks for the gold. I'm still full of shame, but at least I have gold. Story 7 I once painted myself into a corner while painting the basement floor. Had to crawl out the basement window. There are still footprints down there to remind of my Gomer moment. Story 8 In Texas there are a lot of scorpions, so I put the ones that I find inside the house in an old Folgers coffee container. Around a week later I thought all the scorpions would be dead, so I dumped them on the countertop to see the corpses, and the 3 or 4 I found scurried like a off the countertop into the carpet, and I screamed like a little girl. Story 9 Back in college I fished a massive turd out of the toilet and put it in the freezer to prove to one of my friends how big it was. This was after the invention of camera phones. Story 10 On my last day of finals last semester, I was so dead tired that I walked all the way out to my car about half a mile from campus when I realized I forgot my expensive Ray-Ban sunglasses in the classroom. So naturally, I walked all the way back to the classroom where people were still taking the exam when my professor asked me what I was looking for. I asked her if she had seen my sunglasses, to which she replied without a beat. You mean the ones on your head? I may not be a smart man, but I'm definitely not a smart woman either. Story 11 Shaving myself in the shower, so I rinsed the razor blade. I looked down at it and there were still some hairs caught in the edges of the blade. So I figured I'm just gonna run my thumb through here to clean this off. Stupid. It was still stupid when I did it again several years later. Edit It feels so satisfyingly good to know that I am not the only one to have done this. Story 12 I once threw my wallet onto a stranger's shed roof because I am an idiot, walking down the street, playing catch with myself using wallet, getting cocky, going higher, trying to spin it, going higher, lands on shed. Story 13 Was doing laundry one time and had half a load of whites left. Underneath the whites was a white blanket. I did the half load of whites and then did the white blanket. My girlfriend asked, why didn't I just do the white blanket with the rest of the whites? We got into a whole argument about it. Then when she gave me my alone time, I thought to myself, yep, she was right this whole time. Story 14 Had a date last week. Girl came over, I cooked, while we're eating and talking, conversation switches over to methods of opening wine bottles. I tell her about that trick where you put it in your shoe and bang the bottom against a wall, and I grab the bottle of red that was on the table to demonstrate. The bottle I had just opened 30 seconds earlier. Edit Aeon Now my highest rated comment is about how I poured wine on myself. Story 15 I dropped my straightener. Instead of jumping back so it doesn't burn my feet like I usually do, I grabbed the hot plate and held onto it till I put it back on the counter. I have no idea how my body didn't automatically let it go, but did I get burned afterwards? Story 16 I once accused a coworker who didn't get along with me for stealing my sunglasses in front of half the staff. We all know where this is headed, and when I finished my rant, my sunglasses fell off of the top of my head into my hands. I quietly apologized with my shades on. Story 17 Opening the door to a room to stick my head in and talk to someone briefly before saying bye and closing the door on my own head. I've done this multiple times over the years and am still always surprised when the door goes clunk against my noggin. Story 18 I once kept pressing the same button on an elevator trying to get to the floor below, not realizing the button I was pressing was for the floor I was already at. I was wondering why the door kept opening. Needless to say, I felt like an idiot. Story 19 One time I tried to pry apart 2 frozen hamburger patties with the patties in my right hand and the knife in my left pointed to my right hand. An hour later at the emergency room the attending nurse had trouble believing I was a university student. Story 20 I work in IT and had a ticket for a user whose email was broken that I was trying to get a hold of. By emailing them, for 3 days till my boss slowly talked me through the situation until it hit me. Story 21 This may be my first time tripping, but are you certain you want to be drinking? I asked a friend a legitimate question while waiting for acid to kick in. The extremely hoppy beer and Camel Wide's had been smoking eventually caught up with his asthma. After an hour of solid wheezing and no help from inhalers, I finally drove him to the hospital for steroid treatment. Idiot. In high school I thought my friend's mace sprayer was a Bianca breath freshener. We were on our way to ski and I was in the back seat of the full-size station wagon. I suffered in silence for God knows how long because I didn't want my friends to think less of me. Edit: this is the copy pasta from the deleted comment below. Firstly, I know this is Reddit and everyone lies, so you'll have to take me on word. Secondly, this happened in 1985, so my recollections might be hazy. It was definitely a personal defense spray and was a stream. I didn't hold down the trigger, just a quick blast. I remember when the stream hit that back of my throat, the most excruciating pain. I buckled over and internalized the pain. My eyes were watering and I curled up in the fetal position and rode the pain. Despite the further explanation, there are still questions about the legitimacy of my claim. I sprayed some sort of noxious spray into my mouth, if not mace then some sort of head shop OTC defensive spray. I might not have been very quiet and my friends maybe did notice, but because I was trying to tough it out, they did say or do anything. No matter what, it still answers the question. On that day I was not a smart man. Story 22. Trying to make chili yesterday night. I opened up the can and dumped the kidney beans into the waste bin instead of the drainer. I stared at it for way too long before my brain registered my goof. I had Texas chili yesterday night. Story 23. I was at a souvenir shop last year and there was a bowl full of candy-coated chocolate designed to look like pebbles near the register. There was a little spoon in the bowl for people to scoop up some candy, place it in their hand and then eat it. In my absent-mindedness, I eliminated the middleman and just put the whole spoon in my mouth. I was 26 years old. You'll never forget the look of utter disbelief on the cashier's face as I realized what I had done. Story 24. In retrospect, all the times when women I really liked clearly wanted to sleep with me and I stood around completely oblivious to the cues and then realized what had happened months later. Jesus Christ, I am not a smart man. Story 25. Playing ultimate frisbee on campus at U of Arizona. Overran a throw and tried to slow down by jumping onto and hoping to spring off of the edge of a raised cactus garden, but instead overshot the edge and ran into a small, wide and very dense cholla cactus. My balance was lost and I already had thorns in my legs. I was left flailing with only two choices: a step forward into more cacti or be put my hands down to save my fall and recoil from there. I chose B and popped off yelling in pain. 5 seconds later I was surrounded by friends pulling thorns out of my arms and legs. One genius ran to the campus bookstore and bought Elmer's glue, an Arizona trick. Let the glue dry and peel it off. It takes the thorns with it. I ended up pulling a 3-inch thorn from the soft spot between my thumb and pointer finger in absolute horror. Eventually I got about 90 of them out and was able to get home. TLDR cactus ow. Epilogue. One friend, while helping pull out thorns, said, "You better get laid tonight after all this." I laughed, it had been a while. Well, leave it at that, and said okay. Sure enough, he was right and I had a fantastic evening. Story 26. Background. I never met my grandpa. He died before I was born. However, I know his siblings and they are a very close part of my family. So about a month ago, my great-grandma died. On Facebook, someone posted an old picture of her and her children. My boyfriend asked me who was in the picture. I told him this is my great-uncle, that's my great-aunt, but I have no idea who that other kid is. About 20 minutes later, it clicked and I yelled out, that other kid was my grandpa. Story 27. Making these delicious, soft chocolate chip cookies in 8th grade. Foods and sewing. After they got out of the 375-degree oven I grabbed the burning tray, not having the patience to wait. Clenched onto it because I was in shock, then carted in front of the whole class all in a matter of 40 to 45 seconds. Had blisters on every finger. Story 28. I was sipping some tea, holding it in my hand, and the condensation of the glass made my hand wet. I thought I want to dry that off and attempted to get a napkin with that same hand, so I dropped my tea and it clattered to the table. I think I need to step out of the gene pool. Edit right. I forgot to say I'm in the US South where we have iced tea. That's right, cold tea. Story 29. Went on a group date with an identical twin. I got there early, so it was just me and the twins. After 10 minutes they ask, "You can tell us apart, right?" "Yep, you're X and you're Y." "Nope." Story 30. The pond near parents' house was frozen. Stupid me, having never seen ice before, just moved over from Vietnam at the time, decided to walk on it to see if it was really frozen. That was a cold, embarrassing day. Story 31. I once tried pressing what looked to me like the push button of a faucet when I went to wash my hands after using a public bathroom. It didn't do anything. It was just a metal pipe. Then I saw someone else put his hands under the faucet next to me. Water came out. It was a sensor type all along. Story 32. My mom and I needed to take my car to a shop to get it fixed. Our plan was we would drive separately there, and then we would drive back together in the same car. Typical situation, right? Well, we got about halfway to the shop when we realized we were in the same car already and forgot to actually drive my car to the shop as well. TLDR. Went to bring my car into the shop to be fixed, without my car. Story 33. I was at a 7 and had my drink on the counter while fixing hot dogs. Went to take a drink, but instead of Coke I was surprised when I poured relish into my mouth. Forgot I was about to put some on a hot dog and the surprise caused me to spit everywhere and spill a ton on the floor. Story 34. I drove my car for a solid month with what I thought was the battery light on. I got it checked multiple times at multiple places and everywhere said the battery was fine. Turns out it was my coolant light. Story 35. I was once cutting something for a school project with an X-Acto knife using my leg as a table. I looked down and realized what a tragedy it would be if I were to cut my shorts. Luckily only needed a band-aid when I cut my leg. Story 36 made a pressure bomb with water and dry ice in physics lab one time. It was balanced on a stool on the middle of the room. We were all terrified when it pressurized and didn't explode. Tried knocking it off the stool. Still didn't go off. I went over and picked it up. Must have been adrenaline preventing me from thinking clearly, because someone handed me a knife and said that I should make a little hole and use the pressure to spray the water at high speeds. Result: no, the thing exploded in my hands. Couldn't hear anything for about 15 seconds, and my whole chest was a tad bruised, but turned out fine. Immediately had that moment of, well, that was really stupid, dumbest thing I've ever done, and I did it with some of the smartest people I know cheering me on. Not sure if somehow nobody realized what was going to happen, or if they just wanted to see me do it. TLDR, I detonated a pressure bomb in my hands. Story 37 I ate fish food. I don't know why I thought it would ever be a good idea, but the second it hit my tongue, vomit, like, I literally had to dash to the toilet and projectile vomit, because I decided to eat fish food. Story 38 My brother bet me that I couldn't set off the trigger on a rat trap without getting caught in it. Think of a bear trap, but smaller and without teeth. I did not win. Story 39 I was the pastry chef at a restaurant with a foul-mouthed, extremely short-tempered chef who was actually a cool dude and very talented beneath all the bluster. The local farmer's market was setting up outside and he asked if I wanted anything for dessert specials. I asked for cherries. I freaking love cherries, and they were in season at the time. He said okay and left. He came back about half an hour later and put a big full farmer's market sack of cherries on my counter and asked me to juice them. I planned on baking them into something, or maybe making a sorbet, but if my chef wanted me to make cherry juice instead, that's cool too. Me wait, how do I juice them? Chef, use the juicer. Me, the citrus juicer. Really? Chef, yeah, the one you were using the juice oranges not even 2 hours ago. I had no idea how one would go about using a citrus juicer to juice cherries. And the last thing I wanted was this guy jumping down my throat over asking too many dumb questions, or rage hurling lemons across the kitchen with enough force to shatter soap dispensers they came into contact with. I try to choose my words as carefully as possible. Me, do I juice them like oranges? Chef, sigh, yes. Me, could you come over here and like demo it for me when you're not too busy? Chef, yes, I will come over and show you how to do it. You'll be back in a minute. I heaved a sigh of relief and decided a handful of fresh cherries would be the best thing to soothe my jangled nerves. I opened the bag. It was not full of cherries. It was full of blood oranges, which, of course, would juice just like regular oranges. Story 40 was at the local TCG shop a few years back working on some Warhammer 40k figurines. Engrossed in a conversation about the newest Magic the Gathering set, I had forgotten that I was holding two pieces together to dry, and I had used a bit too much glue. Figurine was glued between my thumb and index finger. Story 41 When I went somewhere with my mom and she parks, then the two cars next to us start to leave at the same time, and at that moment I flipped and screamed to my mom and thought my car was moving forward towards the highway. I was inside the car and she got out of the car. Story 42 I once got out of a shower after forgetting to rinse my hair, so I'm standing in front of my mirror for like 5 minutes trying to figure out what looks so weird about my hair, and then I just remember a haircut I got a couple days before and I go, wow, that's a weird look. Only when I got foamy shampoo on my shirt did I realize I might be retarded. Story 43 My mother-in-law gave my husband and I a poinsettia some weeks before Christmas a few years ago. We're incredibly bad at taking care of flowers, so when it was still looking beautiful after 3 months in our home, we were really proud of ourselves. So I went to give the poinsettia some more water, as I had done many times before, and accidentally brushed against one of its leaves. There and then, I immediately realized that that leaf wasn't real at all, and the whole flower was plastic. Its pot was filled to the edge with all the water we had poured into it. Suddenly, we didn't feel so proud anymore. Story 44 I TPD the girls' bathroom in 2nd grade. When the principal started going around to different classrooms to get a confession, I exclaimed, it certainly wasn't me. Out of all the girls here, I'm the one that most did not do it. I was figured out pretty fast after that. Story 45 It was actually about 5 minutes ago. I have a lamp next to my bed, and it always got really hot and would burn paper if I put it on it, so naturally, I wanted to see what would happen if I poured water on it. I was hoping it would evaporate or something. That was not what happened. It shattered the bulb. Story 46 A friend of mine was on campus one night when I was in college and was having female issues. I walked her to every lavatory that was open and nothing. She asks if I can call my sister, who goes to the same school and lives on campus. I ask her what to say. She tells me, just say my Aunt Flo is in town. So I call my sister. Sis, what's up? Me, not much. Here with undisclosed. Listen, her Aunt Flo is in town. Sue, do you have any tampons? Sis, an undisclosed. OMG, undisclosed friend, what is wrong with you? Story 47 Every day I experience that old looking at my phone to check the time, nodding sagely to myself and putting my phone away, only to realize that I had no idea what time it was. Story 48 Every time I crash my car in a stupid fashion, as in backing up and crashing because I didn't properly calculate the back of my car, crashing in enclosed places like parking lots, I feel like it each time. Story 49 I have pots that can go in the oven. I made a baked mac cheese. I took it out of the oven with an oven mitt, took off the oven mitt to get something else, and then went to serve myself by grabbing the pot handle. I had to soak my hand in cold water the entire night and missed a day of work due to lack of sleep. I had blisters all over my palm and all of my fingers. The mac and cheese wasn't even good. Story 50. I was really hungover and decided to make a pitcher of iced tea. I boiled the water, got the tea bags ready and poured in the water. 20 minutes later I realized that I had put the tea tags inside the teapot with the bags hanging on the outside. Story 51. My fiancé and I were on our porch enjoying the night. As I stood there contemplating life, I noticed a moth flying around our light. I grabbed the moth and walked it 3 to 5 feet away. I then proceeded to let it go, thinking I had saved a life. However, as soon as I released it, the other flew right back into the godlight. My fiancé laughed hysterically, then told me that's why she loves me. I am not a smart man. Story 52. In Emacs, the keyboard shortcut for scrolling down by one page is Ctrl-V. One day I was typing in Notepad, and for some reason had my entire document on my keyboard. I absent-mindedly hit Ctrl-V several times to scroll down, or so I thought. I really thought I was scrolling down, because it really looked like it was scrolling as I pasted my document several times in a row. I must have pasted it dozens of times before I realized what I was doing. Story 53. I was sat in a bath when I needed to take a. There was a toilet in the same room, so I did my thing there. When I had wiped my afterwards, I tossed the piece of toilet paper in the bath. Story 54. I once had to drive over 30 minutes to get my ice skate sharpened. After I had gotten lost, I finally get there and go in my trunk, only to find I left the skates at home. Story 55. In college last year, I lived in a dorm building where the bathroom shower was down the hall from my room. One time going to take a shower I was sorta zoning out and I walked past the bathroom and nearly walked out the door thinking I was going to class, with just a towel on. Some people saw. Story 56. This just happened yesterday. I was at the gym with a coworker and he just started lifting. I had some 35s resting on my legs and was about to start my exercise when he asked me what a good weight for his would be. I let go of one of my weights to point to another weight on the rack and that weight on my leg fell and crushed my ring finger between the two 35s. My finger is now bruised and swollen so I can't grip anything. Story 57. Turn gas barbecue to high to light. Can't find matches. Lighter isn't making spark. Finally find matches. Gas has been running the whole time with the barbecue lid closed. Open lid and light match. There's nothing quite like that smell. Story 58. So many god times when I was young that a girl would try to make a pass at me and I would be completely oblivious. 5 years after the fact I'm sitting alone, watching reruns of Scrubs at 3:45 a.m., drinking vodka mixed with Crystal Light flavor powder, and it hits me that no thanks, I don't drink coffee was absolutely not the right answer. My wife basically spite dated me for not picking up on the hints. Story 59. I called information to get a phone number. It was 2003, and when the automated voice asked me to please say city and state, I blurted city and state. My brother was in the room and he just stared at me slack-jawed. Story 60. I was talking on the phone with a friend who had just invited me out. I followed up her invite with, "Yeah, it'll be right there, I have to find my phone." There was a long pause at the other end of the line, then we both started laughing. Story 61. I played patty cake with a stove top to figure out which burner my mother had cooked oatmeal on. While the display on the back had the burner used lit up, there was no reason for me to care, or choose that way to figure it out, but I did. I was 20. Story 62. Some time ago, my brother married an evil manipulative psycho, hated her from the moment I met her, lies, cheats, steals, the whole 9 yards, despite being 2 years my junior because she was married to my older brother, insisted on calling me younger brother and tried to buddy up to me like we were actual family. I played along despite her being despicable, because I love my idiot sibling. Fast forward half a decade, and I am working a few states away from where he is living. One Friday evening he finally nuts the up and leaves her. He drives all night, calls me from the road when he's about 4 hours away, and asks if I can get him a job where I work. We're down a few guys at the time, and other than being a numbskull with women, he happens to be one of the smartest, hardest working guys I know. I tell him not yes, but yes. He tells me he's too tired to finish the drive and is racking out in a hotel, but will be at my place by noon on Sunday. I call my boss, secure him a formality interview for the upcoming Monday, and clean out my spare room. While I'm getting it habitable my phone rings. It's her I pick up, and the following conversation ensues me. "Hey evil wife. What's up?" Her little brother, older brother left me. Pi timma malai fisid nasima cut mijulf. Obviously, not a direct quote. Just the condensed version of the impression she gave over the phone. "Mio, that has to be rough. Think he's coming back." Her new, "Nothing will ever be okagan. Give method lusciouspity." Me, "I see. I guess that means I can finally tell you how much of a I've always thought you were." Click. Feeling wonderfully free and vindicated, I settled into bed. The next morning, I waited till noon, then 1, then 9. Finally my mom calls me, "Your idiot brother chickened out and went back. Sorry I looked like a when my heavily recommended applicant failed to show on Monday." And things between me and that branch of the family have been strained to say the least ever since. I am not a smart man. Hair and mouth and nuts are itchy at the same time. I did them in the wrong order. Story 63. Just this morning, someone rang from downstairs and I opened him the door. It was the guy who checks our water consumption. Sorry, I'm French and I don't know the official word in English. Indiana short. I waited 2 million before opening my door for him to find my apartment. As I was doing that, I saw one of my neighbor getting out. I wanted to avoid some chit-chat and hid myself behind the door, leaving it barely opened. He noticed my door was not closed, and it's the moment my cats chose to start meowing. He looked inside my place, knocked on the door twice, and I felt so stupid that I preferred to stay hidden. I thought by myself he'll eventually leave. He started yelling to know if I was in the apartment. Once, twice, during all of this, I was hidden behind the door 30 centimeters from him and doing my best to be silent. Finally, I jumped out of there, smiling at him while explaining that I thought my girlfriend was coming and I wanted to surprise her. He smiled back, shook my hand and left the place. I never felt so dumb. Story 64. When I was in college, I walked 2 miles in the snow to the liquor store to buy some whiskey. As soon as I got up to the register to pay, I realized I forgot my wallet. Story 65. First year of college. Meet attractive older girl through new best friend one night at a house party. Attractive older girl proceeds to tag along with best friend to meet me, go out of her way to buy me coffee and drinks, be physically affectionate during a party, and eventually invite me to her flat for dinner, and bring me into her room to show me her favorite books. Proceed to have a 30-minute conversation with her about Anna Karenina, then hug her goodbye and leave. Because it's late, I make a point of punching myself in the face every time I remember this one. Story 66. Not me but my friend. We were camping at my grandfather's camp, no power or water. My friend brought a small generator. He had a small electric chainsaw so we could cut up some fire, and was complaining that the extension cord wouldn't reach far enough for him to cut some of the. He was trying to talk us into going and getting more cord, and I reminded him that the generator was portable. The look on his face was priceless when he realized how dumb he sounded. Story 67. A buddy's girlfriend was showing me pictures of a wedding a former classmate had. I asked which one was the bride. She had to tell me it was the one wearing white. I was 26. Story 68. Put in my contacts after eating a bunch of hot and spicy rinds. Completely forgot what pancake syrup was called, and was rummaging around the kitchen bellowing about how I couldn't find the pancake sauce. Tried rollerblading down several flights of stairs when really drunk. Story 69. Tonight, I was trying to be helpful and made dinner. My husband usually cooks. I put the baked chicken into the oven, and 10 minutes later we smelled something. We went to go check on it. Husband opens the oven and immediately takes the chicken out and asks me what I was thinking. Apparently, wax paper and parchment paper are two very different things. I felt like a total. Story 70. Remember when Venus had its transit in front of the sun a while back? I was still in high school at the time and really excited about it, so I had the special sunglasses and everything. A little while after it finished, my dad said to me, "Hey, they just said that now it's about to transit in front of the moon." So I ran outside hoping to catch it. I am not a smart man. Story 71. Atlanta was forecasted to get snow today, and I decided to go to work because the office was open. I left work at 1 p.m., and it's now 11:40 p.m. and I have 7 of my 16-mile trip home still left. I will never again underestimate the snowpocalypse. Story 72. I worked at a wharf. A yacht came through, some Microsoft exec on vacation. I handed them the gasoline nozzle instead of Dasel, and they took on 50 gallons. After discovering the error, they had to wait for a local to arrive and pump it out. Lobstermen couldn't pull up to offload their catch with the yacht in place, so everyone was stuck there late while I swept to stay busy. I felt like a nautical noob. Story 73. Once when it was cold I was having a smoke and drinking a soda one-handed so I could keep the other hand warm. Next sip I put the cigarette in my eye. Story 74. When I was in high school I had one of those stupid answering machines where it sounded like I picked up the phone and would say a few things that someone would say at the start of a normal conversation. I did it so well that I used to get all of my friends and family extremely often even though everyone knew it was there. One day I lost my phone and in looking for it I decided to call the phone. I at first thought that someone had picked it up because of the way they answered and started asking them where it was. After about 10 seconds it dawned on me that I had just had a short conversation with myself and the world came crashing down around me. Story 75. I realize it all the time. It has with my besserwisserisms that make kind-hearted people tell me I'm always smart, but I make terrible decisions all the time. One that hits really hard would be the fact that even though English is my second language I've known it since age 6 and I still don't have my college grades in it. I am fluent enough to have relationships with English-speaking people and no real language barrier. I correct people all the time. Still no grades, not smart. Story 76. I got sent home from work early due to cold weather, then decided to wash my truck. Needless to say, as soon as the water washed over my truck and froze, instantly I knew I was not a smart man. Story 77. Shortly after I got my driver's license I was driving across town to my friend's house and brought a Can-Do soda with me. The cup holders were both being used for miscellaneous that I hadn't thrown away, so as I was driving 30 miles per hour through my town, I lodged the open can of in between top of the steering wheel and the part that you press to honk the horn. About 30 seconds later, I had to turn left into my friend's neighborhood, and immediately as I started to turn I realized the mistake I had made, but couldn't do anything to prevent the soda from being poured right into my lap and on my legs. Story 78. Dropped a crucible during high school chemistry class. It had been under the burner for about 30 seconds, but that was plenty of time for it to give me second-degree burns on my thumb and pointer finger when I tried to pick it up. My group had to stay late to finish the experiment, and I had to miss HS swim team practice for 3 days while the burns healed. Story 79. So I've been working at Walmart for almost 2 years now and I work freight often. You gotta open the box, take the item out of the plastic, and put the item out. We recycle everything so you gotta keep the boxes in plastic, but keep them separate. I used to just throw them all together and separate them in the back room. About 3 weeks ago, I had the revolutionary thought to just grab a grocery bag and stick the plastic in there, because, it's also plastic. Story 80. I've got one. Also bear with me as I'm posting this from my mobile. Okay, so when I was dating my now ex, we were on the couch watching a movie, and I made a snide comment about how all we ever do is hang out at her house and watch movies. She got really offended and told me how she was planning for us to go to dinner and a movie. The next day I go over and apologize for being and her mom makes a comment saying he'd probably just hang out with his friends anyways, and I reply saying no, I love hanging out with Sarah. Oops, I also should have clarified that her name was Sierra and the names sounded very similar. Sarah was another ex that I dated for 2 years and we ended on good terms and we're still good friends. Yeah, we all kinda sat there with open mouths and she stopped talking to me for a few days. Story 81. I once suggested to a colleague that the reason his state machine was not functioning properly was because the Type K thermocouple was not being referenced in the correct order, causing an erroneously high temperature reading. I had this assumption because several of the electronic devices in the lab display 930 degrees F when the thermocouple is not plugged in. Later I asked him about the issue and he found the voltage crossing point is not 930 F but actually 32 F. I felt like a real idiot, still regret not checking the tables to this day.